What was probably arguably the most anticipated Pixar sequel of all time was pretty freaking awesome if you ask me. Hello everybody, I'm the Dark Conservatarian, and yes, I just got done watching The Incredibles 2 in theaters. And I know this is kind of cheesy, a dark-clad edgelord in a dark room reviewing a kid's movie from Disney Pixar, but still, I grew up with watching Pixar all my childhood, and I watched the first Incredibles as well, and I thought it was a good movie, so I thought I'd make my own review of it. And first off, cons with this movie. First con that I have to say is that I thought that the newer superheroes that they added into this movie, the superheroes were pretty cheesy. I mean, they weren't like so cheesy in their superhero abilities, I thought. And by the way, spoiler alert for everybody, in case you were wondering. I mean, it was the costume designs. It was the costume designs of all the new superheroes that they were bringing into this movie. I mean, they just look like old Pixar rejects, like old animation rejects just in general. Like some animation studio designed them, and then they just got stored in the back room of a warehouse somewhere in a box. And they did not even go thinking about the superhero designs here any further, and they just tossed them into the movie. They looked overall pretty cheesy. I mean, with the first movie, Frozone, Incredibles, they weren't that cheesy looking. I mean, but it's a Pixar movie. I mean, what do you expect? They are going to have somewhat of a cheese type look to them, but that wasn't a big con. What was kind of a considerable con to me was that the characters, and this is a problem that I had with the Incredibles 2, what I was kind of suspecting that would be a problem, is that the characters, particularly the main ones, would look like parodies of their own selves in the sequel. Like, for example, okay, so Incredibles 2, if you haven't guessed already by just looking at the trailers, picks right up from the end of Incredibles 1 with them fighting the Underminer. Spoiler alert, by the way, the Underminer gets away. So, and we do not see him again for the rest of the movie except for the beginning, so who knows, maybe they were planning to make like a trilogy of The Incredibles and bring back the Underminer, so who knows. And honestly, I did not really think that they had to bring back the Underminer, in all honesty. But I'm getting off track. Yes, the characters. As soon as I saw the trailer, I know of where that they were going to pick up, because when I was thinking that they ought to make an Incredibles sequel, I was actually hoping that the family would be grown up, but then again, I guess we wouldn't be able to see all the characters get more developed as, like, a whole family living under one household, because the first Incredibles, you had, like, glimpses of everybody's personalities and their gags and gigs and whatnot, but you did not get it all fleshed out. Like, for example, Violet going through, those pubescent teenage years, getting all moody with the boyfriend, and yes, there is drama with Violet and the rest of the family, and Tony Ridinger, however you pronounce his name, the boy that she got offered out to go see a movie at the end of Incredibles 1. So there is drama right there. They did not really flush out Violet's characteristics in that so much in the first Incredibles. They flushed it out in Incredibles 2. So I guess it's... And Dash, they were trying to flush out really his annoyingness, if that's even a word, in the Incredibles 2. Whereas in Incredibles 1, he was pretty annoying. I mean, he was being the typical annoying little brother, but they did not have it flushed out that much. In Incredibles 2, they had it flushed out a lot, if not a little too much, to the point that it almost came off as a parody of his own self, which that was what I was kind of afraid. Again, because Incredibles 2, ever since seeing the trailers, I knew that they were going to pick the storyline right up from pretty much the exact same age that they were in the first Incredibles. There's going to be barely any time between the times of Syndrome and the times in The Incredibles 2, but they have like this wide span of time in between the production of Incredibles 1 and Incredibles 2. So obviously, with how long it took them to finally make and much less release Incredibles 2, it was obvious that there were going to be some certain personality changes. The voice actors, the writers, the directors, they weren't going to get the exact same people to help produce Incredibles 2. And not to mention, people were not going to exactly remember how they were able to capture the persona of all the characters, and so on and so forth. And so, because of production, they were going to end up having somewhat changed personalities of themselves. If they picked up the Incredibles 2 right after Incredibles 1, if they made the sequel a lot sooner, they would have been able to capture pretty much the same, not the exact same, but pretty much the same personality as the main characters in the first Incredibles, if I am making sense here at all. But because they have this wide span, makers of the movie were not going to remember exactly how they captured the personalities of them, and so it really shows, because the characters, they're more cheesier and they look like parodies of their own selves. I mean, they're all more over the top, like, especially Bob, Mr. Incredible. He's like more over the top, and a whole lot of the characters, and Edna as well. Edna had a little bit more of a subtlety to herself, but at the same time being megalomaniacally over the top as well in the first Incredibles. But she wasn't the exact same Edna that we had saw in Incredibles 1 when we get to see her again in Incredibles 2. She wasn't exactly the same, and it really does show. And that's a couple of main examples. Is Mr. Incredibles and Edna, and all the other side characters, they were more over the top than even the main characters, I would say, at least, especially the superheroes. Like, one of them, there's this one guy that has telekinesis abilities to crush things, or maybe he's more like Magneto than just having pure telekinesis. I don't know, because we only see him crushing metal objects, but there's this one guy who literally talks like the Hulk. Were they trying to repeat the Hulk with that guy's personality? I don't know. But anyway, and another con, well actually, no, it's not really a con, but I guess take your pick. The villain had more of a developed storyline. She had more character motive compared to Syndrome from the first Incredibles. But she wasn't as fun to look at, I thought. She wasn't as over the top. She wasn't as megalomaniacal as Syndrome was to watch. And so I guess it's kind of a pick and choose your favorite. Do you like Syndrome better, or I can't even remember her name. But spoiler alert, yes, the villain is ultimately Dever's sister, Miss Dever, or whatever her name was. Again, I cannot remember her name exactly. But yeah, not as fun to look at as Syndrome. With Syndrome, you have all these one-liners that you can, like, cite by memory. Like, everyone will be super. And when everyone's super, no one will be. Okay, that's me being cheesy right there, imitating Syndrome. Okay, there is not a whole lot of cons that I can think of with this movie. I mean, I guess overall, it is better than the first Incredibles, but I can really understand how people like the first Incredibles better than the second Incredibles. Oh, here's another con that I almost forgot to mention, is that they kind of shove Common Core into people's face. Yeah, shout out to all the people who are against Common Core. I'm against Common Core. It's basically like mental gymnast math is what it is. I mean, they overcomplicate math is what I understand Common Core to be. And they kind of shove this in your face in this movie. And I saw some movies talking about of how feminism supposedly is shoved in your face with this movie, but really, I can't see it. I can only see feminism in this movie as much as Razorfist can see feminism influencing Mad Max Fury Road. He was all like, if I squint my eyes, maybe I can make like a 20-minute pedantic rant talking about of how the movie sucked because feminism. I feel the same way with Incredibles 2. I did not see a whole lot of third wave SJW feminism influencing this movie, as some people were kind of being concerned about. I mean, there was little hints here and there, but it wasn't like in your face and over the top like Rey from Star Wars Episode 7 when she learns how to do a mind trick despite not ever having a lesson in how to use the Force, but suddenly somehow Rey from Star Wars 7 knows how to do Jedi mind trick. But anyway, that's me getting off topic. So back to Incredibles. Incredibles 2, what are the pros? There's so many. There's so many that I can point out here. I mean, the characters... Okay. The characters overall, they were either just the same or they were not quite. They were either just the same or they were just not quite as cool as before. The only person that I could say overall stayed the same is Frozone. But what are the pros? Well, it had some kick butt action in it. It had a whole bunch of gags, family gags in it. Like, I mentioned of how that they fleshed out more of the personalities of the whole family dynamic that they were trying to show here. Mr. Incredible, he plays the part of being Mr. Mom, and I like that, honestly. I mean, I guess that was one of the things that people were concerned about with feminism, is that the woman would be the full-time working not head of household necessarily, but the breadwinner of the household as she goes working part-time, whereas the dad plays the Mr. Mom. I mean, that did not annoy me that much. In fact, I like the fact of how that they exhibited right here. Basically, the slight rise of the Mr. Mom culture that America is going under right now. And flushing out the typical dad-like frustrations of, Mr. Incredible and just dads across America just in general. I mean, he was still pretty cheesy and over the top, like they did not capture the pretty much the same personality. And that's something that I forgot to talk about a little bit longer, is if they did start them, I have a feeling that if they did start off the movie like further in the future from the first Incredibles, that the change in personality would be far justified. I mean, because obviously you'll have this wide range of time that took place in between the events of Incredibles 1 and 2, and so there would obviously be massive character changes to Violet, Dash, Mr. Incredible, and so on and so forth. Edna. Yeah, another pro. I also liked the fact that they fleshed out Violet, they fleshed out Dash a little bit more, despite him being like over the top and cheesy to the point that it almost looked like he was from a Tom and Jerry cartoon or something like that. But you get my drift. And I really liked. I actually liked the big ass city. What was the name of the city? It was called New Urban or something like that. But this city, the way that they designed it, it was massive. Like, seriously, it shrunk both downtown Tokyo and New York City combined, with of how tall the buildings were and of how massive the urban landscape was. I mean, seriously, with of how tall the buildings were, they would put a building project from Dubai or the United Arab Emirates to shame. I mean, because you watch some YouTube videos and research about these building projects that these rich Middle Eastern Arab countries have, of how they're going to make these massively tall buildings, or even in Hong Kong and China for that matter, they try to make those big ass buildings too. But the buildings that they were showing in New Urban, again, I cannot remember the exact name, but in the big ass city in Incredibles 2, the city that they were showing, it would put both to shame, both Dubai and China. and the sprawl, the spread of the city would put Tokyo to shame, in my opinion. So what else was pros? I guess that's where I'll wrap it up. But yeah, Incredibles 2, it was well worth the watch. It was overall more entertaining. Oh yeah, I mean, this is something that I gotta mention. Like Jack, you know, the little baby that they were exhibiting, that he was obviously going to have superpowers. He was like way overpowered, I thought. I mean, he was showing himself to be overpowered in the first Incredibles with him having laser eyes, and of course Jack Attacks was showing him to have even more superpowers in the actual movie itself. Laser eyes, floating mid-air, and, you know, walking through, or going through in general, solid matter, transforming into the Beast, transforming to Steel, and just transforming into all these things. But they take all of his powers and they give him more. Like, he's able to grow to massive sizes. Like, there's this one part, more towards the end of the movie, where he becomes into this big tub of lard, practically. Wake up, computer. And he's, like, super strong. Like, about as strong as the Hulk at that point. And yeah, when he becomes super big like that. Yeah. So Incredibles 2, it was overall a fun ride. It was nice and adventurous, and it had a little bit more political themes to it. I mean, take it as you will. I mean, either you're really annoyed with the politics. I mean, they do not have a whole lot of things in this movie that reflect, like, real life. Like, they were not parodying necessarily Trump or anything in modern day U.S. politics. But they had more fake politics involved with this movie than even with the first Incredibles. Like, the politicians at the very beginning of the movie, they were doubling down on keeping superheroes illegal. Like, after they had stopped the Omnidroid from destroying the city, yeah, I said that I would wrap up this review, and here I am going on more. Sorry, guys. But, you know, if how the Incredibles destroyed the Omnidroid at the end of the first Incredibles, and, Bud's character, Rick, Dicker, that was his name, Mr. Dicker, the Man in Black type of character, the Tommy Lee Jones type of character, he said that the politicians would handle it, supposedly, of whether or not superheroes can come out of hiding. But opening up with the second Incredibles, they doubled down more. The politicians so there's more politics involved with this movie. And then of course there's a rich guy that they come to get the opportunity to make superheroes legal again. I guess that's most of the parodying that they do of Trump, is that the rich guy, this is what I like. I mean, they don't make the rich guy a villain like is stereotypical of Hollywood to always make the rich guy the villain. So I like the fact that they break away from that stereotype. That's another pro that I'll throw out there. But the most that they do to parody real life politics is that they have this phrase, make supers legal again. Like I just could not help but think of the Make America Great Again slogan, you know? Okay, so I think that's where I'll wrap it up. Yes, Incredibles 2, fun ride, adventurous. I loved it. I thought it was better than the first Incredibles to a certain extent. I mean, the first Incredibles had some aspects to it that the second Incredibles did not. Like the first Incredibles felt a little bit more like a spy movie than the second Incredibles do. So, take your pick. But yeah. How do I rate this? Actually, did I rate Ready Player One when I reviewed that? I cannot remember. But I would say it's a 4 out of 5, I guess. Or a 7 out of 10. I'll use that metric. No, screw it. 8 out of 10. I like the movie. And so anyway, liked it? I would suggest a watch for it, especially if you're a big time Pixar fan. The kids will definitely get a chuckle, and the adults probably will too, with I don't know, the Common Core references were still kind of funny to watch, and so on and so forth, and all of how the movie reflected on parenting. The parents will definitely sympathize with the characters in that field. But that's where I'll wrap it up. Anyway, I'm the Dark Conservatarian, and this is all I have to say. See you later. Bye-bye.